Welcome to the Baloney Podcast. We're your hosts, Sean and Lanette
What's up,
Reed,
y'all?
and we are excited, passionate about building families that will leave a legacy. This episode is really unique in that we are speaking about relationships.
Yeah, so as our listeners know, we typically don't isolate conversations around, couples and relationships, but it's a podcast that is for everybody. But we do have a heart for marriages, we have a heart for families. We also have a heart for those who may be single and who are wanting to
Mhm.
be in a relationship. And so we kind of want to focus in a little bit on what it takes to build a great relationship. I didn't want to say perfect because there are no perfect relationships out there, but there are great ones out there and they put in a lot of work. And
Mhm.
what you and I do on a consistent basis is we have the ability to coach couples, to
Mhm.
meet with couples, sit down with them for 1 or 2 days and show them the ropes a little bit so they could walk out with some great tools to have a great marriage.
Yeah, so we want to talk about what that looks like and why you should do it. One of the things that we really believe that you can have an abundant, enjoyable, happy marriage,
Yes.
that you don't have to be married and miserable. And
Oh,
then,
that sounds like a book, Married and Miserable.
yeah, I just think God wants so much more for us than that. I think that each and every marriage that is in his name is a representation of the love of Christ to his church.
Yeah.
And Ephesians, the fifth chapter, gives us a reference to that, where Paul says that marriage is like a mystery that explains and reveals to the world the love of God.
Mhm.
So when our marriages are stuck in a spot that it's just either we're just not happy or it's just constantly contentious, it's so stressful just to be in the relationship. You can't seem to get a breakthrough in communication, or the intimacy levels are off, or it's not sexually fulfilling. Like, all of
Mhm.
these things are are solvable issues.
They are, and problems can be solved, or cushioned with the right tools.
Yeah. If you don't have a roadmap to healthy communication, which I know we've heard a lot about communication in relationships, and it sounds kind of obvious.
But it's still the number one
Man, it's
number one reason people get divorced.
yeah, it's because it's difficult because we're not necessarily taught before we fall in love with someone or are attracted to someone. We're not necessarily taught, here's the roadmap to great communication. This is your this is the way your spouse is going to lead when they're under pressure. This is the way they're going to approach financial decisions when times are tough.
Yeah.
Or this is how they're going to begin to parent when you get your first kid. Like, no one really goes into a relationship like with a checklist of, here are all the ways we should communicate to each other, and this is exactly what I expect from you
Right.
when you talk to me, when we're under pressure or you're stressed or you're angry. And so we end up, we're committed to a person, we love them, we walk into the relationship, but we don't necessarily have the right processes or tools to help us build something. At the end of the day, you can be passionate about building a house, but without the right tools, you're not going to build
Yeah.
it. You need to have the right tools. And there are tools that are available, and that's
Mhm.
what we love to equip people with.
Yep.
When we lead our marriage coaching sessions with couples, we're literally taking them through what most of them, after they get done with the process with us, they're listening.
Oh,
By the time they get done, and they're just like, dude, I
I
wish I
wish I
would have
would have
had
had
this,
this. Yep.
20 years ago, 27 years ago,
Yeah.
17 years ago, you know, because there's so much that we give to couples. We focus on how a person leads, which is really important to understand. We
Mhm.
focus on what a couple values. We talk about their personality styles, how they differ,
Yeah.
and how they can benefit from one another's personality styles. But then we also break down conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how often at the end of our sessions, couples' eyes are open. Prior to the sessions, their hearts are hurting.
Oh my gosh, you can see it. Like now we get to see couples who are in the thick of their mess.
Mhm.
And then we also see couples who may not have any conflict at the time, but they're doing it as a tune-up.
Right.
So you can go through our coaching sessions if you're going through something right now or if everything is okay right now. But what's beautiful about the couples who are in the thick of their mess is they come in, they sit on the opposite sides of the couch. They're not holding hands, they're not smiling. You can clearly see that they're at odds with one another. But by the end of day 2, and
Mhm.
honestly, I would say by the beginning of day 2, they're sitting close to one another, passing tissues or leaning in to one another physically. So you can just see that some bricks have fallen down from their
Mhm.
wall, and they're able to see a little clearly,
Mhm.
get a clearer understanding of the conflict.
Yeah, because when you in pain, it's really you're very you focused, and
Yeah.
it's hard because it makes sense to be you focused because it seems when you're at this spot where you can't seem to talk without fighting or arguing or the other person checking out checking out of the conversation and not willing to participate
Hmm.
because they feel like they keep reaching a dead end every time you try to talk. So they're withdrawing and one person wants to lean in and talk, but then they're becoming aggressive and triggered.
Yeah.
Like that cycle of triggering one another, it just doesn't feel good. And so after a while, you've tried. And it poor communication affects everything else
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
you kind of don't want to have sexual intimacy with a person that you're uh really questioning whether or not if they
Hmm.
love you deeply, do they still care for you, do
Or
they
you
want
feel
to
like
be
you're
in the
sleeping with
relationship.
the enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I love working with couples. You love working with couples because we're able to see not just the change that's going to take place, the transformation that'll take place during the process of walking them through our coaching sessions, but then also thinking forward. If they have children, I'm thinking about their legacy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the people around them that have watched them and have said, "Man, they really going through it." But then by the time they get done, they see a shift in that relationship.
Yeah.
Like that's what we love to see.
Yeah. So, speaking to legacy, right? Like our nonprofit is Legacy Maker. And so the coaching is Legacy Maker coaching. And so you and I have the position, we're not on the side of the wife, we're not on the side of the husband, we're
Mhm.
on the side of the marriage,
Right.
and we're on the side of their legacy, right? So we're on the other side saying, "You got this, you can fight for this, this is worth it, it's worth kind of the tension and the conflict that you're going through, fight for it." And so we are fighting for their legacy. But another beautiful thing is, as we're hearing the stories of these couples and they're sharing, when they got triggered or when the event happened, and we're hearing a little bit of the backstory, we're actually discovering their baloney.
Right.
And we're able now, not all of them watch the podcast, but we're able to identify those lies that they may be believing that's keeping them bound.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, it's something when the light bulb comes on for us to be able to say, "Are you sure about that?"
Yeah.
So they may be thinking or saying something in telling the story, but you and I will get a look,
Mhm.
right? And we'll look at one another and be like, you want to address that one or you want to go for it? And it's just really inspiring to see their vulnerability, but our ability to come in and say, "Okay, I hear what you're saying, but this is God's truth."
Yeah. I think what happens is we're not in the pain. We're empathizing with what couples are going through, but we're not in the middle of the dog fight. So we
Mhm.
don't feel all the pain, that they're feeling, which gives us the ability to see it from a perspective of um looking at it according to what both of the individuals in the relationship are now beginning to communicate and finally get out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes out painfully,
Yeah, it does.
and so it's harder for the other person to hear. So
That's
you
true.
and I, we're picking up on things from a different frequency because we're not literally in the thick of some of the things that they're feeling. I think that
And I think that's why you need someone on the outside.
absolutely,
That's why you need a mediator.
absolutely, you do need somebody who's a go between. You need somebody who can help, um, communicate sometimes for you because they can say. I've had people say, Like, man, you said it so well. Yes, that's what I was thinking. Um,
But you always lead with, I don't want to put words in your mouth,
oh, absolutely.
right? I don't want to say this and assume that this is what you're thinking.
Yeah, and it's so cool, man. It's so what's different about what we do, and what a therapist may do is that we use some therapeutic um methods,
Yep.
but we're really focused in on helping couples to see how to do marriage God's way or to take a biblical approach to their marriage. And without that sounding weird or cheesy, what we're saying is God designed marriage.
Hmm.
He has a plan and a purpose for marriage, and he gave us a roadmap as to how it should work. And a lot of it deals with renewing our minds. It deals with how to love each other according to the teachings of Christ. I mean, how to serve each other. That goes back to the teachings of Christ. So there's so much in the Word of God, and without it being like a Bible class, we make it very hands-on. It's actually very eye-opening by the time a couple goes through this process.
Yeah.
They're not just sitting listening, they're being equipped,
Hmm.
and then they're putting to practice some of the tools that we're literally giving them step by
Yes.
step. And we meet with couples for either a 1 day or a 2 day, basically 8 hours or 16 hours,
Hmm.
where it's intense. We're meeting with
That's why
couples.
it's called an intensive.
Yeah, and so we usually don't say the word intensive because
Yeah.
most people are like, when you say intensive, it's like, what? Well, what we're saying is it's gonna get intense for eight
Yeah.
hours or for 16 hours. It's 1 day or 2 days, and really the 2 days is best because it gives you more time.
Yeah.
It
And I prefer a 2 day because kind of going back to what you just said, we're actually sitting down with you practicing. You're practicing in our presence. So there is a lot of coaching and a lot of dialogue between you and us. And then there's a lot of dialogue between you and your spouse. But then we hit this point in the session where we are asking you guys so many questions, and we're trying to get an understanding of your heart
mhm.
and your perspective. And then there's the just a conflict resolution piece, and just a lot of things. And so we actually, you get to feel something out, and you turn around and you talk to your spouse. And yes, it can seem weird and awkward, but you're relearning how to communicate.
Yeah,
You're relearning how to do certain things. And so it is going to be a little choppy, but by the end of it, and that's why we suggested day two, because by the
yeah,
end of it, you have a little bit more confidence.
yeah. So if you want to learn how you can get this powerful resource within your relationship. Again, pre-married,
Hmm.
married, it doesn't matter if you are in a rough spot or if you just want to tune up. This is the closest thing to being mentored
Yes.
or really coached by Sean and Lynette Reed.
Yeah.
Um,
We don't do anything really outside of this. Actually don't do like 45-minute or an hour
nah.
marital
Mm-mm,
sessions. We actually prefer to take all couples through this process
mm-mm.
first. And then if there are any follow-up sessions needed, then we'll schedule an hour or a 2-hour session.
Yeah, so for a while I was a director of a therapy center, and I love the transformations that actually took place. We had some great therapists actually that were a part of the organization, and they helped walk people through some really difficult moments, mentally, physically. One of the things that I did notice though that's different that we get to do that's different than therapy. I think therapy is a part of,
Yeah.
walking alongside somebody over time. What we get the privilege of being able to do in that 8 to 16 hours is we are able to give the necessary time to stay and work and get to the root of problematic issues that are sabotaging the relationship.
Yeah.
And you have us as experts, but you also have more than that, the presence of the Holy Spirit. And you have two people who are able to stay
Yeah.
focused, honed in on, all right, I don't want to hurt you. You don't want to hurt me. How do we get to the root of whatever it is that's hindering the best version of us from
Yeah.
moving forward?
Yeah.
And a lot of times with therapy, you're meeting for 45 minutes. Maybe one person has talked, the other person feels attacked. It's that whole process. They peel
Mhm.
back the band aid, but then go home after 45 minutes and maybe 5 minutes of a therapist giving you a few tips. And it's not that those tips are wrong, but the
Yeah.
people are so wounded or emotionally exhausted.
There's so many layers,
Yeah.
and they haven't even uncovered one layer.
Or receive tools like that really can help them
True.
based on a healed forgiveness, empathetic atmosphere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like a lot of that's gone. It's never been built for some people in that 45 minutes. And then you come back in what, 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, once a month. Like just thinking about that is exhausting
Yeah.
because you never fully heal over the process of that time and going into those sessions.
Yeah.
So with the process that we do, that we would love to get you guys plugged into, it literally gives you a consistent amount of time to really get to the root of things, to be able
Mhm.
to pull out the lies that we've been believing that are sabotaging the relationship. And in some cases, it's just ignorance. We just don't
We just
know.
don't know, yeah.
For years, our relationship really struggled, and
For years.
largely it was because, it was multiple things. We needed inner healing. We needed to understand how to do marriage according to God's truth.
Right.
But we also didn't understand each other's personality, our
Mhm.
communication styles. Like when we sat down with somebody who helped us to see and taught us our communication styles and helped us to understand it, man, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
And that's what we provide,
Yeah.
for couples during this process. So,
What's really cool is, you're ever growing,
mhm,
and so your spouse is ever growing, and so you're constantly having to relearn them,
yeah.
right? And so the tools that we give you, you're able to apply those tools, and for every season, for every year, for every metamorphosis, as you may want to call it, you're able to relearn them, and you're able to rediscover who
Mhm,
they are. We have seen couples who are at the beginning of their relationship of pre-marriage, and so some couples use this as their premarital coaching, and then we've been able to see some couples who are getting remarried for a second time because their spouse passed away or whatever, and they're like in their 70s.
mhm,
And that was really sweet,
mhm.
unique. But even they said the same thing, man,
Yep.
I wish I would have had
I
this
wish I
in
would
my
have had it.
first
Yep.
marriage. Right.
Yeah. So tell them how they can get plugged
Yeah.
in if they want to
So
connect with us.
here's the thing. For every couple that Sean and I see, we like getting you guys on the phone or a Zoom call for 20 minutes to hear your story, to hear where you guys are and where you want to be. And so, if you're interested, that's the first step. It is to schedule a 20-minute free call. And we prefer to have you and your spouse on the call because there's two people in marriage. And so you've got two perspectives.
Hmm.
Regardless of if those perspectives are the same or not, we want to hear from you. And the way to do that, best thing to do, you got two ways. You can go to SeanandLanette.com, SeanandLanette.com, or you can email us at info@SeanandLanette.com. And if you're going to email us, just say, hey, I'm interested in the coaching, and we'll take it from there. Again, um, we're very relatable. So if you email us, you're going to get us,
Yeah.
you know.
And of course, within the show notes or the description on YouTube,
Yeah.
if you're watching on YouTube, we'll also put a link. Here's what I want to say with all of that. Like, I spent years leading in ministry. I was a worship leader at the time when we were struggling the most. I was really embarrassed. I didn't want to really say to anyone that, either our marriage was failing or we were on the
Mm.
brink of divorce because divorce seemed like such a dirty word at that time. And I guess it still is, especially in the church world. It's just kind of like, so to even mention it was like, oh, you're a failure,
Yeah.
you're a failure, that type of thing. So we didn't reach out. And I just want to say, like, if y'all are really struggling, please don't hesitate to get the help that you
We're here
need.
for you.
We would love to be able to connect with you. Don't let pride or
Hmm.
selfishness or fear get in the way. And if you are a husband and you really want better, and you want to see a healthy legacy, then I want to encourage you to take this step. even if things have not worked in the past,
Yeah.
I want you to give this a try. This is different. It's better than anything that I've seen for relationships, and I cannot tell you how many couples we've seen over 70 couples in the last
Yeah.
2 years, and all of them have said literally the same thing, that this is transformative, that
Yeah.
it was breakthrough. They wish they would have done it sooner,
Yeah.
and that it was definitely worth the investment and then some. So we would love for you guys to reach out to us. The reason why we did this particular episode is because we are in a spot where Lynette and I, we travel the country. We see um, couples all over, and we do these workshops and conferences, and
Mhm.
people will come up to us later on and they'll tell us how difficult their relationship is, or man, we're really struggling, but what you said spoke to us, but they won't take that next step.
Yeah. It's like they get inspired for the moment.
Yeah.
They see that glimmer of hope, you know, and it'll just last for that moment. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I need you to step out of the box and just call.
Yeah.
I just need to get you on the phone, get you on the Zoom or whatever, and let us talk to you and know that
Called the Good Samaritan lessons, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Where you care for those who may not be offering you anything in that
Mhm.
moment, or you learn to be able to hear another person's perspective. You don't have to agree with it, but still to be able to empathize and connect with, to validate somebody else's experience, and then yet have a healthy conversation where you disagree,
Yeah.
but you still love the person, right?
Yep.
Like that's a sign of maturity, but it's also for a lot of people right now. I'm telling you, you need to learn this skill. And so
Yeah.
we have a whole section where we just work to deal with empathetic communication, because without it, you can't really build vulnerability. And what a lot of y'all are craving right now is
Mhm.
a vulnerable, safe, healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And in order to get there, it requires like tools. It's not just going to change because we keep asking God to fix it. It's going to be ask God to fix it and
And
work with God to do
yes.
it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You're gonna have to partner with God. And that means being able to be equipped for breakthrough. And
Yeah.
that's really what this is all about. If you want breakthrough in your relationship, or if you want to be able to create or build the relationship with the person that you like, man, I want to marry this individual, then don't waste your time.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time. Get the help you need now. And sometimes, just sitting down with 3 sessions with the pastor, and they kind of giving you their personal opinion on, what they think premarital is.
Mhm.
That may be enough for some people, but then for others, don't ignore the warning signs. If you are already having dysfunctional communication
Oh,
issues,
please. No.
if you know that you're already struggling with intimacy, if you know that you're kind of wishing that things would be different, that they would
Mhm.
be more romantic, or that they would be more
Or
compassionate.
you find yourself slipping into someone else
Mhm.
that it's just not you.
Mhm.
This is not your norm, but you're kind of changing into another version. Yeah. Those are red flags for sure.
Yeah, man. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an absolute no for all my premarital or engaged to be married individuals. It just means you don't want to ignore it. You need to do
Right.
something about it. It means y'all need the right tools. It may not be a lack of passion, it is just a lack of healthy processes. You could be passionately in love with someone and not know how to care for them.
Love it.
Um, I loved having an infant, right? When we had our kids, loved having an infant. But
Y'all,
if
he been looking at babies lately too.
I love,
He
I
he
love,
was he leaned y'all, he leaned over and was like, "You want another?"
we getting, I believe
It's
God is
like,
preparing us for grandbabies. That's all it
yeah,
is.
that's what I said. I was like, yeah.
So I almost forgot what I was supposed to say. I was like, why did I bring up babies? She totally threw me off. So what I was saying was, we raised three kids. The first one, you don't know when a kid all of a sudden is just like coughing and struggling and crying. You're just kind of wondering what's going on. But if they took in too much wind or got
Right,
colic or whatever the case may be, like, what do I do to fix this? Like somebody has to tell you that.
right.
Somebody has to teach you how to do it right. You don't want to be guessing with something that's life or death. You don't want to be guessing with something that's that important when you're caring for another person. And it doesn't matter how much I love the kid, someone has to teach me how to address that particular issue.
Mhm.
And I think it's the same way within relationships. You can love this person, think they cute, all the things. But if you don't have the right tools, it's going to lead to just a cycle of dysfunctional behavior. And we believe that the legacy God has for you is something so much greater. So make sure y'all reach out.
Yep.
We would love to hear from you. Again, you can click the links, visit our website, do all the things, but don't let it be said that you had an opportunity to get help, but you
You
settled
didn't.
for the same old same.
You don't have to have an average marriage.
Invest in your relationship. We
Yeah.
love y'all. God bless you.
Bye.